Okay, so the following topic will be the Vienna variation. The e4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, and bishop c4. Actually, this variation can come out from a different move order also, like bishop c4, knight f6, and then knight c3. So there is no any different here. However, here there is another main continuation, the sharper f4. But let's start with the bishop c4. Knight c6 and d3. D3 is an important move, otherwise if he would play something knight f3 or knight ge2, black can play knight takes e4, knight takes e4, d5, and black has a comfortable position. And it's also true for the knight f3, which can come out from the 4-knight system also. White faces with knight takes e4, knight e4, d5, and this is a comfortable position for black. It is also true for bishop takes f7. It's not a good move because king takes f7, knight takes e4. Seems to be a good idea with white because black cannot castle, but it's no problem because d5, knight ge5, knight eg5 check, king g8, and threatening with e4 and h6 also. White's pieces are not coordinated at all. Black king is safe already. He has a strong center and bishop pair also, so his position is very, very promising here. The rook is on h8 is not a problem. Usually some players ask that, okay, but what about with the h8 rook? But later with the manual castling we can solve that without any problem. So that's why d3 is important to play. And okay, knight a5. Actually, the basic of the Vienna is to play knight ge2. When white refrains from playing knight f3, this way reserving the right to play f4, and white setup on the king side will be elastic, like this one. By playing knight a5, black is fully aware of the fact that the white light squared bishop may cause a lot of trouble for him and tries to exchange it. This is one of the disadvantages of the d3. He avoided knight takes e4, but he allowed the knight a5 stuff. In case of black doesn't play knight a5, then he won't take advantage of white's mistake, that is to say bishop c4. After 5 knight ge2, which will be one of the main line here, white wants to put his knight to g3, towards here, and from where he controls the h5, f5 squares. It is also interesting and deserves attention that after the exchange on c4, black will not triple his opponent's pawn with b takes c3. Black may put off this exchange a bit, but he would hardly manage to play the game on without it. As white lost the tempo by playing bishop b3, black doesn't have to delay the exchange on b3. In other lines, where white plays a3 or a4, black has the opportunity to take the bishop at once. Otherwise, the white bishop will go to a2. Okay, but let's start a variation with bishop b3. knight takes b3, a takes b3. This variation has become popular in the last few years, even in the highest level also. We will also see games about that. And d5. This is one of the main weapons when black immediately tries to find counterplay in the center. Actually, he's happy for that because first of all he has bishop pair, and he didn't lose any tempo with d6, so he could immediately play this d5 move. And okay, now white has several continuations. Knight f3 is the main move, but there are other ways also. For example, in case of bishop g5, black can play bishop b4, also developing and take pressure on the knight. This is actually not the only one, so the d takes e4 way, the simplification is also completely okay for black. But this is a nice developing move which keep the tension and take some pressure on the knight and threatening with d4 also. E takes d5. Yeah, this is forced enough, because what else can he play? Threatening with d4, king f1 is very, very ugly, bishop c3, b takes and d takes e4, and black is very good here. And in case of d4, some counter chance in the center, then black can play a nice cool-blooded continuation, h6. Bishop takes f6, queen takes f6. It's very rare when in the center there are 4 pawns. Knight f3, because if e takes d5, we take on e4. If he takes on e5, then we take it back. So everything is imbalanced. So knight f3, and here black should have played e takes d4. Queen d4, queen takes d4, exchange everything, and after d takes e4, black has minimum a slightly better position, because first of all he is a pawn up, and he has double bishops against the double knights. So this d4 was also not a serious move. Bishop takes f6. It is also an attempt, but this also gives up the bishop pair so easily. G takes f6, e takes d5, queen d5, queen f3 for example, and bishop e6. We can say this is an ambitious continuation. Black sacrifices the f6 pawn, but he has an active counterplay for it. The more solid queen takes f3 was also possible. Knight takes and rook g8 is also should be slightly better for black. He has a very flexible pawn structure. These double pawns are no problem at all because support the e5. So in the endgame, this pawn structure is really good. Moreover, open the g file for his rook. So bishop e6, queen takes f6, queen d5, bishop d5 would be a clear advantage for black. Or if long castle, then it's already time to take knight takes f3, and after long castle, black is minimum slightly better. Queen takes f6, rook g8, knight f3, and after e4, black immediately has a great counterplay. D takes e4, queen takes e4, because this bishop is pinning the knight as well. So e takes d5, queen takes d5, and queen f3. Let's see if knight f3 instead, then we have bishop g4. Also development, pin the knight. Now both bishops are pinning the knights. Queen e2 and knight d7. Simply protect the e5 pawn, and black has a comfortable position. So come back here, queen f3. And okay, here there are also several options. Probably the easiest way is just exchange that with queen takes f3, knight takes f3, but now knight d5. immediately takes pressure on the c3 knight, and in case of bishop d2, knight c3, b takes, and bishop d6, and black's position is simply more comfortable. Slightly better thanks for the bishop pair again. Okay, nice. So let's go back to the critical position d5. This was the bishop g5 stuffs. How about e takes d5? Here black has also several options. Bishop b4, knight takes d5, bishop g4. Actually, all of them are completely possible. Maybe bishop g4 is just a bit maybe weaker, but the other two is completely nice, completely playable. Let's see, for example, if knight takes d5, then his main idea is queen h5, and he would like to create something attack against the e5 pawn. Let's see, for example, knight f3. Knight f3 is also completely acceptable move. Knight takes c3, then b takes, and bishop d6. This is the reason why black should exchange on c3, because the bishop d6 wouldn't be working immediately, because the knight d5 would be hanging after that. So knight takes c3 takes, bishop d6, castles, and rook e1. As also black has a bishop pair and a central pawn on e5, white immediately should find something counterplay. f6 and d4. Yeah, because if you would play solid moves, simple solid moves like h3, then rook e8, bishop e3, a5, completely normal, acceptable continuations, knight d2, and b6 prepares for the knight c4 and protect with an extra pawn or piece the a5. Because, for example, if knight c4, then the bishop can go back to f8 without any problem. From the bishops from the back rank is also so strong. Like, for example, from d6, and those are not so attackable there. That is a very important reason why with the bishops sometimes we go back. Look, on f8, c8 also completely okay. Completely controlling these diagonals. Okay, so queen f3 happened instead of knight c4 in the game, and rook b8, knight e4, bishop f8, knight g3, and queen d7. Queen d7 is also nice move because first of all we avoided knight f5, so there is a strong queen and bishop battery in this diagonal, and also bishop b7 is also a nice continuation soon. Bishop will be strong on the long diagonal. Alright, so let's go back to the f6 position. This was the h3, and okay, in case of d4, black continue with a developing move by bishop f5. Let's see what is the point of this bishop f5. If d takes e5, we can just take it back with probably with the bishop, and finally the c2 pawn will be weak. But we can also take with the pawn, and knight takes e5 is already not working because he will have back rank checkmate problems. So bishop takes, queen d8, rook a d8, and there is no rook takes e5 because rook d1 checkmate in the end. So, and in case of he doesn't take on e5, then sometimes we can even play e4 also, or bishop g6 first, and then we can see how can we do something against the white's position. But c2 is always a weakness there. It's a very, very important factory. Okay, so this was the knight f3 and the move 8. Let's see how about queen e2. Queen e2 is similar than queen h5, just a little bit more passive version, and black has possibility to play f6 and protect that pawn as well. Knight f3, bishop b4, black doesn't have any problem at all, bishop d2, castle, castle, knight c3, bishop takes, b takes. Okay, now white could exchange black's bishop pair, but still those light pieces, bishop against knight, is also slightly better for black, because the pawns are in two sides, and also the e5 f6 pawn structure is restricting very well the f3 knight. So for example, bishop g4, rook a4, and bishop d7, tempo, rook h4, and bishop c6, knight d2, queen e8, knight c4, and after a5, we can just say black has a comfortable position again. For example, knight e3, and we can play f5 here, with a great central pawns, very flexible pawns, and the knight doesn't have any special based, while the bishop on c6 is very good on the long diagonal. Sometimes even with queen g6 we can have also threats later if the knight is not here, or we can attack that with f4. So we have many good options there. Okay, so let's see queen h5. Now there is no f6, so also black has several options. Knight b4. This is my main, but this is not the only one. Knight takes c3 is also a possibility. Queen d6 cannot keep the pawn for a long term, because knight f3, knight b4, short castle, and white has a quick play. Black is undeveloped now. Even if we take the c2 also, knight takes c2, knight b5, and he's just very quick. So, okay, knight takes c3 is a possibility, queen e5, bishop e7, it's a positional pawn sacrifice, but maybe here, if white can finish the development properly, maybe his position is slightly better. So, I can recommend the knight b4. This is also a pawn sacrifice, but the knight has an ideal square on b4, as the c2 is always very weak. Queen takes e5 and bishop e7. King d1. If yeah, this is a very, very hard and strange move. Queen e2 is the main continuation. Yeah, after king d1, simply castle, and very, very quickly we can feel that black has a great compensation for the pawn, because what is the king on d1? Yeah, it's not a good move. Queen d4, queen c8, of course we don't exchange, and then we are ready to play very quickly and create a pressure against the white king. After this especially we can say that this is fine. Okay, so this was the king d1. Let's go back to queen e2. Queen e2 is still the normal move, we can say that. Short castle and queen d1. Rook e8, threatening with something discovered check. Knight ge2, And we have also several options. b6, prepare for the bishop b7 is also a nice option, but a5 is also a possibility, but with the same plan. White is a pawn up, but all the time black has a good compensation. Look this position. Black's both bishops are on the long diagonals. The knight on b4 is excellent, moreover very stable because the a5 pawn is protecting that. And the rooks are also ready to come. Rook a d8. The e8 rook is already on the diagonal, threatening now with rook takes e3, queen e3, bishop d4. So his situation is simply hard here. But this is also true for b6. Castle, bishop b7, bishop e3, queen d7, queen d2, and a5. So very, very similar position like the previous one. Also, black's compensation is because of the bishop pair. So he has just a completely normal position. Okay, alright. So this was the... If we go back, the e takes d5. So e takes d5, knight takes d5, and let's see knight f3 as the main line. D takes e4. Yeah, black would force the exchange of queens. But okay, to close the center with b4, with d4, would be also completely acceptable possibility. For example, knight b1, bishop d6, and we keep the center. For this we can also say it's okay, but if we follow the chess principles, open up the position, it is favor for the bishops. So that's why d takes e4 is a very logical continuation. Knight takes e5. Of course, white would like to avoid the exchange as much as possible, because for example d takes e4, queen takes d1. There is even another ambitious move with bishop d6 also. So if black would like to keep the queens, he has also possibility for that. But let's see, queen d1, king d1, bishop d6, bishop g5, and knight d7. King e2, a6, rook hd1, rook b8, knight d2, and b5. What was the point of rook b8? Prepares for b5, because the immediate b5 would be hanging, yeah, because of this spin. So that was the reason of this bit strange maneuvers. Knight f1, knight c5, knight g3, knight e6. Also nice knight maneuver with both sides, but especially with black. Bishop e3, and now coming a very important typical continuation, g6. Restrict the g3 knight. Yes, he cannot come forward. Knight d5, knight f4 check. King f1, knight d5, rook d5, bishop b7, rook d3, and after h5, it is a complicated play, but black's pawn structure is more flexible, and he has a bishop pair again, which might come in handy in long term. Alright, so let's go back to the knight takes e5 position, e takes d3, and short castle. Yeah, queen takes d3 would go to an end game. Queen d3, knight d3, and bishop f5, knight b5, and a very nice solution of the reply here, long castle exclamation mark. Black completely ignores the a7 pawn and offers for white Rook takes a7 seems to be dangerous, but no problem because king b8. Now we are threatening with several moves like bishop d7, attack the knight. And he's losing a piece. That's why the rook need to go back, go out of the taking, and then bishop d3, c takes d3, rook takes d3, and black stands slightly better because white's pawn structure is pretty weak. Double pawns on b2, b3, and he didn't even castle. Okay, so this was the queen takes d3. Let's see how about castle. Bishop e7, continue the development. Of course we cannot do with the d3 pawn anything, so we have to sacrifice back that. d takes c2 obviously is bad because the fork in the end. So bishop e7 is completely fine. Knight takes d3. Queen takes d3 would be similar like in the previous variation. Takes bishop f5 and black position is comfortable. There are no central pawns, two sides pawns. With bishop pair it is slightly better, so white really needs to fight for the equalizing. So knight takes d3, castle, queen f3, c6, h3, rook e8, rook d1, bishop e6. This was the point of c6. We closes the queen's diagonal to the b7 and also control the knight moves forward. Bishop e3, queen c7, bishop f4, and queen c8. Ambitious move. Bishop d6 would be a equal position because black gives up his bishop pair and his bishops, because even the e6 bishop will be also exchanging after takes, knight f4. So that's why this queen c8 is a very ambitious continuation. Bishop e5, knight d7, bishop d4, and yeah, it was a very important position. Here black should have been played f6 exclamation mark to break the d4 bishop's diagonal. Otherwise he could have strong threats there and it's not comfortable at all for him. b6 happened in the game and later white managed to win, but of course it doesn't mean that black would have any problem. Even his situation is more promising. Yeah, so we can just conclude this Vienna setup. This is aimed very aggressive play, which often includes sacrifices, but for white it is important to be a safe side without burning all bridges and try to justify his actions from the point of view of the positional play as well. This is how it usually happens. At first, he develops with his minor pieces to active position, then he pushes the thematic f4 move, then castles, usually to the king side, and starts an attack only after all this. Of course, the theoretical knowledge is also very important here, because the middle games are full of sharp and complex stuffs. This is also a completely playable weapon against or with both sides, actually.